If you've ever walked north towards Thurleston from Mouthwall Beach, you may have noticed this track cut into the rocks. It's known as Donkey Path and may have been used for donkeys carrying seaweed from the beach up to fertilise the fields. It may have also been used for unloading coal from the barges. For the locals, however, this is not Donkey Path. There are two others. One follows the same route along the cliffs here and is said to have been named because of the donkey that lived in the field above Mouthwall Beach. It died when the field washed away in a storm in the early 1900s and is said to be buried under the current footpath. The second Donkey Path is over at Inner Hope and runs from the square up past Bolt Barn to Bulbury Down. What is now the Cove was once the Bird in Hand, a village pub where local fishermen would enjoy a pint after a hard day's fishing and smuggling. Across the road was the Cabin, which in the early 18th century is said to have been occupied by a rather attractive lady who used to entertain the King's custom men in the pub, whilst her smuggling friends escaped through a trapdoor in the floor of the cabin and fled away via a passageway that led out under the shippen. When she was caught red-handed, she drove her own coach and horses to Exeter Assizes, where she charmed her way out of trouble. There's still said to be a 35-metre cave, the remaining part of this tunnel accessible through the shippen at low tide, but we can't find any trace of it. On the night of November 13th, 1823, a Coast Guard watch caught a group of fishermen's wives here at Bolt Barn, just above the square. They were preparing donkeys to carry the smuggled goods from their husbands away elsewhere. The feisty women got the better of the Coast Guards, but were later arrested by reinforcements and sent to Exeter Jail. The menfolk, however, got away and took their goods to Churchstowe, where they sold them at the local inns and taverns. Not to be outdone, the fisherwomen, all 18 of them, left Exeter Jail some time later, but took all the copper kettles with them at the same time. As well as being part of the smuggling scene, Bolt Barn was also home to a visiting dancing bear, who used to stay in the barn between performances here in the square. The barn was also used as a cinema, presumably not with the bear still in it. Nothing is left of the barn today, but you can still see the sheltered orchard which surrounded it. Just around the coast from here, facing the sea, there's a little cave known as Rolf's Hole. It's about 20 feet long and would have been easily defensible from marauding bailiffs or constables. It's close to the precipice, and the titular Rolf is thought to have lived in the cave for a period, successfully defending his lair using a prong to poke at any incomers. He left his cave on Sundays and his wife brought him provisions. Curiously, at the other end of Bolt Tail, just above Pilchard Cove, is another cave, lost to time, called Jack Crook's Hole. There's a very similar, more recent story to be told. If you tried to gain entry, Jack Crook would poke you with a stick. It's been pointed out that Jack Crook may have been hiding contraband in his cave, in which case it would have suited him very well for people to think they'd be poked with a stick if they investigated too closely. Who can say whether Jack, Rolf, or both of them spent their time holed up in Bolt Tail, poking at people, or whether it's all just a tall tale? Pilchard Cove was Hope's historical harbour. Previously known as Pilchard Quay, Quay Sands and Quay Cove, it would have sheltered a few hundred vessels under Bolt Tail many hundreds of years ago. Fishing boats would have been pulled up on the beach here. We're all familiar with the modern breakwater at Outer Hope, but at low water you may be able to make out a structure at Pilchard Cove called the Danish Quay. Whether it's a historical man-made feature intended to protect this little harbour from the waves, or a natural geological dike in the metamorphic gneiss and schist here, isn't clear. One of the many smugglers' tunnels is said to run about a mile from the Shippen in Hope to Smugglers' End here in Gampton. But if the smugglers were digging mile-long tunnels through the hard Devon stone, they were very committed to the cause. We're told that Smugglers' End does have an underground cellar, but that it extends only a few feet from the house's boundary. If you believe all the tales of smugglers' caves, the hills of South Devon would have been riddled with holes like Swiss cheese. One such tale documents a tunnel running 100 metres vertically and 1.5 miles horizontally from Sawmill Cove to here in Marlborough Churchyard. It's thought it was used for smuggling contraband from the coast up to the village, until the smugglers were driven out by giant otters. You may have wondered why the churchyard is so much higher than the path and the church itself. Of course, when the church was first built, the ground would have been level all the way round. But over many hundreds of years and many, many internments in the ground behind me, the soil would have gradually built up to its current level. You may have wondered why Marlborough is obsessed with moonrakers. It was the name of the cricket team and of a cottage on Lower Town. But the legend goes back far beyond James Bond. It's said that one night a group of local smugglers were carrying their cargo of rum in barrels up from Bulbury Down, and as they approached the bottom of Jacob's Lane, they saw the customs men coming into view, so quickly threw their barrels into Horsey Pool. With the full moon high in the sky, one of the men realised that the customs men would be able to see the barrels through the glassy clear water. He grabbed a rake and started raking at the surface. When the customs men arrived, they asked, "Why are you raking the surface of the water?" And, gesturing to the broken reflection of the moon on the surface, one of the men said, "The moon has fallen in and I'm trying to get it out." The Moonrakers legend is also associated with the Marlborough and Devizes area of Wiltshire, but it's our view that they stole a perfectly good legend from us. South Hewish doesn't get many visitors, so you may not have noticed this ruined church here. St Andrews was built between the 13th and 15th centuries, and for many hundreds of years was a thriving place of worship. In 1866, a divine gust of wind blew out a pane of glass which narrowly missed the Reverend F.R. Hole's head. Reverend Hole decided the church was unsafe and decreed it would be cheaper to build a whole new church in Gampton rather than repair it. In 1866, the church in Gampton, by then a far bigger settlement, was built, and you can still see the shattered remains of two 15th century alabaster reredos representing sculptural scenes from the life of Christ, which were moved here from St Andrews. Today the church remains a ruin, supported by the Friends of Friendless Churches, and if you want to pay it a visit, you can carefully and respectfully explore the grounds.